The early morning light filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William stood in his dressing room, adjusting his ceremonial uniform for what would become one of the most significant days in recent royal history. His fingers worked carefully with the gold braiding and medals that adorned his chest, each piece carrying the weight of tradition and responsibility. The house was unusually quiet for a family with 3 young children, but today was different. Today, his father would be crowned King Charles III, and the entire family would play their part in this historic moment. Catherine emerged from their bedroom, wearing an elegant cream-colored dress that had been carefully chosen months in advance. Her hair was styled in a sophisticated updo that would support the delicate headpiece she would wear to the ceremony. She moved with the practiced grace that had become her trademark over the years, but William could see the mixture of excitement and nervousness in her eyes. This coronation would mark not just his father becoming king, but also their family stepping into an even more prominent role in the royal hierarchy. Down the hallway, the sounds of children getting ready could be heard through the closed doors. Princess Charlotte was already awake and sitting patiently while her nanny helped her into her specially designed dress. The young princess had been looking forward to this day for weeks, having been told about the importance of the ceremony and her role in supporting her grandfather. Her dress was a miniature version of royal elegance, with delicate embroidery that caught the morning light as she moved. Charlotte had been practicing her curtsy and proper posture, taking her responsibilities seriously despite her young age. Prince George was in his own room, being helped into his formal attire by one of the palace staff. As the eldest child and future heir, George understood the significance of the day better than his siblings. He had been given special instruction about royal protocol and had spent time with his father learning about the ceremony's meaning. His outfit was carefully chosen to reflect his position in the line of succession, while still being appropriate for a child his age. The young prince stood still as his collar was adjusted and his shoes were polished to a perfect shine. The youngest member of the family, Prince Louis, was proving to be the most challenging to prepare. At his age, the concept of a coronation was difficult to understand, but he could sense the excitement and importance of the day from everyone around him. His outfit was identical to his brother's, but keeping him still long enough to get properly dressed was becoming an adventure in itself. Louis kept asking questions about why everyone was wearing such fancy clothes, and when they would see the pretty crown that everyone kept talking about in the main sitting room of their apartment. The family gathered for a final review before leaving for Westminster Abbey. William looked at his wife and children with pride, seeing how they had all risen to meet the importance of the occasion. Catherine had spent weeks preparing the children, reading them stories about previous coronations, and explaining the traditions they would witness. She had made sure they understood that today was about celebrating their grandfather's new role as king and supporting him as a family. The palace staff moved efficiently around them, making final adjustments and ensuring that every detail was perfect. Photographers were already positioning themselves along the route to capture the family's journey to the Abbey. William could feel the weight of expectation that came with such public events, but he also felt a deep sense of pride in his family's ability to handle these moments with dignity and grace. Charlotte practiced her wave one more time, remembering her mother's instructions about keeping her hand gentle and her smile natural. George straightened his shoulders and checked his appearance in the mirror, showing maturity beyond his years. Louis continued to fidget with excitement, asking if he would get to wear a crown too, which brought gentle laughter from his parents and siblings. As they prepared to leave Kensington Palace, William took a moment to gather his family around him. He reminded them that today was not just about ceremony and tradition, but about showing their love and support for their grandfather on one of the most important days of his life. He told them that millions of people around the world would be watching, but that they should focus on being themselves and representing their family with pride. Catherine knelt down to Louis's level and reminded him of the things they had practiced, speaking in gentle tones that helped calm his excitement into focused attention. She straightened Charlotte's dress and gave George an encouraging nod, her maternal instincts perfectly balanced with her royal duties. The family formed a natural circle, their hands joining together in a moment of quiet connection before stepping into the public eye. The cars were waiting outside, their engines running quietly as security personnel made final checks. The streets of London were already lined with people who had been waiting since before dawn to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Union Jack flags waved from every available surface, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. William could hear the distant sounds of the crowds as they prepared to make their journey to Westminster Abbey. As they walked toward their vehicles, the family moved together as a unit, their coordination the result of years of public appearances and careful preparation. William's hand rested gently on George's shoulder while Catherine kept a watchful eye on Louis, who was still taking in all the sights and sounds around him. Charlotte walked between her parents, her confidence growing with each step. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the palace grounds as they climbed into their cars, the beginning of a journey that would take them into history. The coronation of King Charles III was about to begin, and the Wales family was ready to play their part in this momentous occasion. Their unity and genuine affection for each other was already evident, setting the tone for what would become a day remembered for its perfect blend of royal tradition and family love. The royal convoy made its way through the streets of London as thousands of people lined the route to Westminster Abbey. Prince William sat in the lead car with Catherine and their 3 children, watching through the windows as crowds waved flags and cheered their arrival. The excitement outside was infectious, and even young Prince Louis pressed his face against the glass to get a better view of all the colorful decorations and happy faces. The streets had been transformed into a festival of red, white, and blue, with banners hanging from every building and flowers decorating every corner. As their car approached Westminster Abbey, the ancient building came into view like a majestic stone giant rising from the heart of London. The Gothic towers and intricate stonework had witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies, and today it would host another historic moment. Charlotte gazed up at the towering spires with wonder, remembering the pictures her mother had shown her of previous coronations that had taken place in this very same building. The Abbey's bells were ringing across the city, their deep tones announcing the significance of the day to everyone within miles. The family's car pulled up to the Abbey's entrance, where a red carpet stretched from the street to the great doors. Members of the clergy stood waiting in their ceremonial robes, while military officers in full dress uniform formed perfect lines along the pathway. William stepped out first, his movements confident and practiced from years of royal engagements. He turned to help Catherine from the car, her elegant dress flowing gracefully as she emerged. The cameras flashed constantly, capturing every moment of their arrival for the millions watching around the world. George followed his parents with remarkable composure for someone his age, remembering all the lessons he had learned about public appearances. His small chest was puffed out with pride as he walked beside his father, understanding that he was part of something truly special. Charlotte came next, her dress catching the light as she moved with the poise her mother had taught her. She kept her head high and her steps measured, already showing the grace that would serve her well in her future royal duties. Louis was the last to emerge from the car, and his reaction to the grandeur around him was immediate and genuine. His eyes went wide as he took in the massive crowds, the elaborate decorations, and the impressive building before them. Catherine quickly moved to his side, taking his small hand in hers to provide comfort and guidance. The youngest prince looked around in amazement, pointing at the colorful banners and asking questions that only his family could hear above the noise of the crowds. As they walked along the red carpet toward the Abbey's entrance, the family moved together as a perfectly coordinated unit. William acknowledged the crowds with waves and nods, while Catherine smiled warmly at the people who had waited hours to see them. The children followed their parents' example, with George and Charlotte waving politely and Louis giving enthusiastic waves that brought cheers from the spectators. The sight of the young family together created a buzz of excitement that rippled through the assembled crowds inside the abbey. The atmosphere was completely different from the festive chaos outside. The ancient building was filled with a sense of reverence and history that seemed to quiet even the most excited visitors. Hundreds of guests were already seated in rows of chairs that had been carefully arranged for the ceremony. Distinguished visitors from around the world filled the nave, including presidents, prime ministers, and members of other royal families. The air was thick with anticipation as everyone waited for the ceremony to begin. The Wales family was escorted to their special seats near the front of the abbey, where they would have a perfect view of the coronation ceremony. As they walked down the center aisle, heads turned to watch them pass. Louis continued to look around in wonder at the soaring ceiling and the colorful stained glass windows that cast rainbow patterns across the stone floor. Charlotte stayed close to her mother, occasionally whispering questions about the beautiful decorations and the important-looking people they passed. George walked with increasing confidence as they made their way to their seats, his eyes taking in every detail of the historic surroundings. He had studied pictures of the abbey in preparation for this day, but seeing it in person was far more impressive than any photograph could capture. The boy's serious expression showed that he understood the importance of the moment, even at his young age. His parents had explained to him that this was where kings and queens had been crowned for nearly 1,000 years. Once they were seated, the family had a few moments to settle in before the ceremony would begin. Catherine made sure the children were comfortable and reminded them quietly about the behavior expected during the service. She straightened Louis's collar and gave Charlotte an encouraging smile, while William reviewed the order of service with George. The abbey continued to fill with guests, and the sound of quiet conversations mixed with the soft music from the organ. The ancient walls of Westminster Abbey seemed to hold their breath as the final preparations were made for King Charles III's coronation. Centuries of history looked down from the carved stone figures and memorial tablets that decorated every surface. The building had seen the crowning of kings and queens, royal weddings, and state funerals, but today it would witness the Wales family supporting their patriarch in one of the most important moments of his life. Louis fidgeted slightly in his seat, still amazed by everything around him, but beginning to feel the solemnity of the occasion. Catherine placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, helping him understand that while the day was exciting, it was also very important and required his best behavior. Charlotte sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap as she had been taught, while George studied the ceremony program with the intensity of someone much older than his years. The organ music swelled throughout the abbey as the final guests took their seats and the ceremony prepared to begin. The Wales family sat together in their front row seats, a picture of unity and support for the man who would soon become their king. The golden light streaming through the stained glass windows seemed to bless their presence, highlighting the love and respect that bound them together as they prepared to witness history in the making. The great organ of Westminster Abbey filled the ancient space with majestic music as King Charles III made his entrance for the coronation ceremony. Prince William stood with his family as his father walked slowly down the center aisle, wearing the crimson robe of state that trailed behind him like a river of silk. The moment was deeply emotional for William, watching the man who had prepared his entire life for this role finally reaching the pinnacle of his destiny. Catherine placed a supportive hand on her husband's arm, understanding the mixture of pride and responsibility he felt as he witnessed his father's historic moment. The three children watched with varying degrees of understanding as their grandfather proceeded toward the altar where the Archbishop of Canterbury waited with the ancient crown. Prince George stood at attention, his young face serious as he grasped the significance of what was happening. He had been taught about the long line of kings and queens who had walked this same path, and now he was watching his own grandfather join that legendary procession. Princess Charlotte held her mother's hand tightly, her eyes wide with wonder at the pageantry unfolding before them. Prince Louis proved to be the most animated observer of the ceremony, his natural curiosity getting the better of royal protocol. As he pointed at the golden treasures being carried in procession, the crown jewels sparkled under the abbey's lights, creating a dazzling display that captured the young prince's complete attention. Catherine gently guided his hand down while whispering explanations in his ear, helping him understand what each beautiful object represented. The sight of the youngest royal being so genuinely amazed brought smiles to nearby guests who could appreciate his innocent wonder. As the ceremony progressed through its ancient rituals, the Wales family demonstrated their deep respect for the traditions being performed. When the congregation was asked to pledge their allegiance to the new king, Prince William's voice rang clear and strong throughout the abbey. His words carried not just the formal oath required by ceremony, but also the personal love and loyalty of his son supporting his father. The moment was powerful and moving, showing the world that the royal family was united in their commitment to the crown and to each other. Catherine's participation in the ceremony was equally graceful and meaningful. When the time came for the formal recognition of the new king, her curtsy was perfect in its execution, a flowing movement that spoke of years of training and natural elegance. But more touching was the way she helped Princess Charlotte perform her own curtsy, gently adjusting her daughter's posture and giving her an encouraging nod. The interaction between mother and daughter showed how royal traditions were being passed down to the next generation with love and patience. The most solemn moment of the ceremony came when the Archbishop of Canterbury placed St. Edward's crown on King Charles's head. The abbey fell completely silent except for the ancient words being spoken, and even young Prince Louis seemed to understand that something very important was happening. Prince George watched with intense concentration as his grandfather officially became king, while Princess Charlotte clasped her hands together as if she were making a wish. The weight of history seemed to settle over the entire building as centuries of tradition were fulfilled in that single moment. Throughout the long ceremony, the Wales children showed remarkable patience and good behavior despite their young ages. Prince George maintained his composure even when the service stretched on longer than expected, occasionally glancing at his father for reassurance, but never losing his dignified bearing. Princess Charlotte sat quietly beside her mother, occasionally whispering questions about what was happening, but always in tones so soft that only Catherine could hear. Her curiosity about the ceremony showed her intelligence and genuine interest in understanding her family's role. Prince Louis provided the most endearing moments of the ceremony with his natural reactions to the grandeur around him. When the choir sang the coronation anthem, his face lit up with delight at the beautiful music echoing through the stone arches. When the trumpets announced each part of the ceremony, he looked around in wonder at the sound bouncing off the ancient walls. His genuine joy and amazement reminded everyone watching that beneath all the formal protocol, this was still a family celebration of a grandfather's important day. The ceremony reached its climax when King Charles was presented to the people as their newly crowned monarch. The moment was met with enthusiastic cheers from the congregation, and the Wales family joined in the celebration with obvious pride and happiness. Prince William's face showed deep emotion as he looked at his father, now officially the king, while Catherine smiled with genuine warmth at the successful completion of such an important ceremony. The children clapped along with everyone else, caught up in the excitement of the moment. As the service moved toward its conclusion, the newly crowned King Charles processed back down the aisle, now wearing the imperial state crown and carrying the symbols of his new authority. The Wales family watched with pride as he passed by, their seats, and there was a brief moment when grandfather and grandchildren exchanged glances filled with love and mutual respect. The sight of the family supporting their patriarch in his moment of triumph created one of the most touching images of the entire ceremony. The organ music swelled once again as the coronation service came to its formal end, but the Wales family remained in their seats as protocol required. They would be among the last to leave the abbey, giving them a few extra moments to absorb the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Prince George looked around at the ancient building with new understanding, realizing that he had been present for a moment that would be remembered in history books for generations to come. Princess Charlotte smoothed her dress and checked her appearance, already thinking ahead to the next part of the day when they would appear before the crowds outside. Prince Louis was still looking around in amazement at all the colorful decorations and important people, his excitement undiminished by the long ceremony. Catherine gathered her children close to her, preparing them for the transition from the solemnity of the abbey to the celebration that awaited them outside. The Wales family stood together as they prepared to leave Westminster Abbey, their unity and love for each other clearly visible to everyone around them. They had successfully played their part in one of the most important ceremonies in British history, and now they were ready to continue supporting the newly crowned king as he began his reign. The ancient stones of the abbey had witnessed another chapter in the long story of the British monarchy, and the Wales family had helped write that chapter with grace, dignity, and genuine family affection. The golden state coach rolled through the streets of London carrying the newly crowned King Charles III and Queen Camilla, while behind them followed an impressive procession of royal carriages. Prince William sat with his family in their ornate carriage, the children pressed against the windows to wave at the enormous crowds that lined every street. The procession route had been transformed into a river of celebration, with people packed shoulder to shoulder along the barriers, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family on this historic day. Princess Charlotte had positioned herself at one window while Prince Louis claimed the opposite side, both children completely captivated by the sea of faces and waving flags that stretched as far as they could see. Charlotte waved with the practiced grace her mother had taught her, her small hand moving in gentle arcs that delighted the crowds below. Her smile was genuine and warm, showing that she truly enjoyed connecting with the people who had waited hours to see her family pass by. The sight of the young princess acknowledging their presence sent waves of excitement through the gathered spectators. Prince Louis provided the most entertaining moments of the procession with his unbridled enthusiasm for everything happening around him. He bounced from one side of the carriage to the other, trying to see everything at once and wave to as many people as possible. His animated pointing and excited expressions brought laughter and cheers from the crowds, who were charmed by his natural exuberance. Catherine gently tried to encourage him to sit still, but even she couldn't help smiling at her youngest sons. Pure joy in the moment. Prince George sat with more composure befitting his position as future heir, but his eyes were bright with excitement as he took in the spectacular scene around them. He waved politely to the crowds while also observing how his parents handled the public attention, learning valuable lessons about royal duty even during this celebratory moment. The young prince occasionally leaned over to point out interesting sights to his siblings, showing his natural protective instincts and his growing understanding of his role as the eldest child. The carriage procession moved slowly through central London, allowing maximum opportunity for the public to see their royal family up close. Prince William and Catherine acknowledged the crowds with practiced skill, their waves and smiles creating moments of connection with thousands of people along the route. William's pride in his father's achievement was evident on his face, while Catherine's natural warmth made everyone feel personally welcomed. Together they presented the perfect image of a modern royal couple balancing tradition with genuine accessibility. As they passed through Parliament Square, the crowds became even denser and more enthusiastic, The children were amazed by the sheer number of people who had come to celebrate their grandfather's coronation. Princess Charlotte asked her mother how many people were watching, and Catherine explained that millions around the world were sharing in this special day through television and internet coverage. The concept of such a vast audience was difficult for the children to fully grasp, but they understood that something very important was happening. The procession paused briefly at several key locations along the route, giving the crowds extended opportunities to see the royal family and take photographs. During these stops, Prince Louis became increasingly animated, pressing his face against the carriage window and making faces that delighted the children in the crowd below. His innocent playfulness created some of the most memorable moments of the entire procession, showing that even royal children were just children at heart. Princess Charlotte used these pauses to practice her royal wave, experimenting with different styles she had seen her mother use at various events. She tried the slow, graceful wave for formal occasions and the more energetic wave for exciting celebrations, deciding which one felt most natural to her. Catherine watched her daughter with pride, seeing how seriously Charlotte took her royal duties while still maintaining her childlike enthusiasm for new experiences. Prince George spent the quieter moments of the procession asking his father questions about the buildings they were passing and the history behind the ceremonial route. William explained how previous coronations had followed similar paths through London, connecting their family's experience to centuries of royal tradition. The conversation helped George understand that he was part of something much larger than just one day's celebration, linking him to the long chain of British monarchs who had come before. The weather remained perfect throughout the procession, with bright sunshine illuminating the colorful decorations that adorned every street. The Union Jack flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, while flower petals thrown by enthusiastic spectators created a festive carpet along the route. The combination of perfect weather, jubilant crowds, and the royal family's obvious happiness created an atmosphere of pure celebration that would be remembered for years to come. As they approached Buckingham Palace, the crowds became even more excited, knowing that the traditional balcony appearance would be the climax of the day's public celebrations. The children could see the palace gates ahead, began asking when they would get to stand on the famous balcony where so many historic royal moments had taken place. Catherine explained that they would soon have the chance to wave to even more people from that special place where their great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth had appeared so many times. The carriage procession finally arrived at Buckingham Palace. As the crowds reached their peak of excitement, the palace courtyard was filled with invited guests and officials who had been waiting to welcome the newly crowned king and his family home. The children looked up at the familiar building with new eyes, understanding that their grandfather was now officially the king who lived in this magnificent palace. Prince William helped his family down from the carriage with the same careful attention he had shown all day, making sure each child was steady on their feet before they walked toward the palace entrance. The family moved together across the courtyard, their unity and mutual support clearly visible to everyone watching. Catherine smoothed the children's clothes and checked their appearance one final time before they entered the palace for the final phase of this historic day. The crowds outside the palace continued to cheer and sing as the royal family disappeared through the grand entrance, but everyone knew that the best was yet to come. The traditional balcony appearance would provide the perfect ending to a perfect day, giving the Wales family one more opportunity to share their joy and gratitude with the people who had made King Charles's coronation such a magnificent celebration. The children could hardly contain their excitement as they prepared for what would become the most photographed moment of the entire coronation day. Inside Buckingham Palace, the royal family gathered in the center room, the traditional staging area before the famous balcony appearance. Prince William stood with his wife and children as they waited for the signal that would take them out to meet the massive crowd assembled in front of the palace. Through the tall windows they could hear the roar of thousands of voices singing the national anthem and chanting, "Congratulations to the newly crowned King Charles." 3. The sound created an electric atmosphere that filled everyone with anticipation. For the grand finale of this historic day, Princess Charlotte pressed her face to one of the windows, trying to get a glimpse of the enormous crowd that stretched from the palace gates all the way down the mall. She had never seen so many people gathered in one place, and the sight took her breath away. The sea of red, white, and blue flags waved like ocean waves, while countless Union Jacks created a patriotic carpet across the landscape. Catherine joined her daughter at the window, pointing out different sections of the crowd and explaining how people had traveled from all over the world to witness this special moment. Prince Louis was practically bouncing with excitement as he waited for his turn to step onto the famous balcony. He had heard stories about all the important royal moments that had happened on that balcony, from wedding celebrations to jubilee appearances, and now he would be part of that history. His energy was infectious, bringing smiles to everyone in the room despite the formal nature of the occasion. William gently reminded his youngest son about the proper way to wave and stand, but Louis was too excited to stand still for very long. Prince George stood quietly beside his father, studying the protocol sheet that explained exactly where each family member should stand on the balcony. As the future heir, he understood that his position and behavior would be closely watched by millions of people around the world. The young prince had been practicing his royal wave and his serious expression, wanting to make his family proud during this important public appearance. His maturity and sense of responsibility impressed everyone who observed his careful preparation. King Charles III entered the center room wearing his coronation robes, the imperial state crown still resting on his head as he prepared for his first balcony appearance as the reigning monarch. The sight of their grandfather in his full royal regalia filled the children with awe and pride. Louis immediately ran to hug his grandfather, careful not to disturb the magnificent crown, while Charlotte and George offered more formal bows that showed their understanding of the ceremony's importance. The newly crowned king's face lit up with joy at seeing his grandchildren, his happiness evident despite the weight of his new responsibilities. Queen Camilla joined the family group, her own crown sparkling under the palace lights as she embraced each of the Wales children with genuine warmth. The sight of the entire royal family together in their coronation finery created a powerful image of unity and continuity that would be remembered for generations. Catherine made final adjustments to the children's outfits while William reviewed the balcony arrangements one last time, ensuring that everything would proceed smoothly for their public appearance. The moment finally arrived when the palace doors opened onto the famous balcony, and the family stepped out to meet the thunderous welcome from the crowd below. The noise was overwhelming at first, a wall of sound that seemed to shake the very walls of Buckingham Palace. Prince Louis stopped in his tracks, amazed by the sheer volume of cheering and applause that greeted their appearance. Charlotte reached for her mother's hand, suddenly feeling the magnitude of the moment, while George straightened his shoulders and stepped forward with growing confidence. King Charles and Queen Camilla took their positions at the center of the balcony, with the Wales family arranged around them in a perfect tableau of royal unity. Prince William stood proudly beside his father, while Catherine positioned herself to keep a watchful eye on all three children. The sight of 4 generations of the royal family together on the balcony created an emotional moment that brought tears to many eyes in the crowd below. The symbolism was powerful and moving, showing the continuity of the monarchy and the strength of family bonds. Princess Charlotte found her courage quickly once she was on the balcony, her natural grace taking over as she began to wave at the enormous crowd. Her smile was radiant and genuine, showing that she truly enjoyed connecting with the thousands of people who had gathered to celebrate her grandfather's coronation. The young princess moved along the balcony railing, trying to acknowledge as many sections of the crowd as possible, her thoughtfulness and consideration already showing signs of her future role as a senior royal. Prince Louis provided the most memorable moments of the balcony appearance with his unrestrained enthusiasm and natural charm. He waved with both hands, pointed excitedly at different parts of the crowd, and even covered his ears when the cheering became particularly loud. His genuine reactions and obvious joy delighted everyone watching, both in person and on television. Around the world, the sight of the youngest royal being so authentically himself reminded everyone that beneath all the ceremony and protocol, this was still a family celebrating together. The traditional flypast by the royal air force provided the perfect climax to the balcony appearance. As the aircraft approached Buckingham Palace, the family looked up together, their faces filled with wonder at the precision formation flying overhead. Prince Louis pointed at each plane as it passed, while Charlotte clapped her hands in delight at the spectacular display. George watched with intense concentration, already understanding that he was witnessing history being made above the skies of London. The red, white, and blue smoke trails left by the aircraft created a patriotic rainbow across the London sky, providing a magnificent backdrop for the royal family's final waves to the crowd. King Charles raised his hand in acknowledgement of both the flypast and the continuing cheers from below, his satisfaction with the day's events clearly visible on his face. The moment captured perfectly the blend of military precision, royal tradition, and family joy that had characterized the entire coronation celebration. As the balcony appearance drew to a close, the Wales family gathered closer together, their arms around each other as they took in the incredible scene before them. The crowd continued to cheer and sing, unwilling to let this magical moment end. Prince William looked at his wife and children with obvious pride, knowing that they had all played their parts perfectly in this historic day. Catherine's eyes sparkled with happiness as she watched her children experience something they would remember for the rest of their lives. The family finally stepped back from the balcony railing, but not before taking one last look at the sea of celebrating faces below. The coronation of King Charles III had been a complete success, but it was the genuine love and unity displayed by the Wales family that had truly captured the hearts of people around the world. Their natural warmth, obvious affection for each other, and perfect balance of royal dignity with human emotion had created the defining images of a day that would be remembered as one of the most successful royal celebrations in modern history.